Fiore. Frank, Happy New Year. We've not done some podcasts in a while, and we wanted to talk about your books again. Some new books are out. Let our listening audience know which new books are out.
Okay, I've concentrated last year. I concentrated on westerns, and as we know, we my first set of westerns were the Jonathan Smythe Cowboy Sleuth, and then I said, what else can I write? And I always like do quirky things. My books are quirky. It's not the everyday western. Uh, and so I came up with the idea of Kit Carson in Africa. Okay, now everybody knows Kit Carson is it wasn't in Africa, and takes place at the turn of the century, so we know that he's already dead. But the main character is Jimmy Kit Carson. He just be distantly related to Kit Carson, and he's also a rodeo star, and so he knows all the rodeo tricks. He knows how to handle animals and stuff like that. And so uh, he just finished winning the grand championship and the Prescott rodeo, and he's got his big buckle and all that. He said, there's no other places thing to conquer, and that he's approached by some guy who says, I have a foundation in Africa, and the foundation is to help the local tribes people to get food, to get meat. Right now, the only way they can get food is through the cattle, and there's a cattle baron that owns the whole the whole thing, and it drives the prices up where the local villagers can't afford it. And so he came up with the idea that okay, you can't have cattle. How about wildebeest? And wildebeest meat is good, and there's lots and lots and lots of wildebeests. And so he wanted to uh, bring Kit Carson over to Africa and help him train a bunch of Maasai cowboys to learn how to rope and whatever, actually do the same thing that they would do in there. Now, the Maasai is a great choice because Maasai are cattlemen. I mean, that's what their life is based on cattle and stuff, and so they know how to handle cattle and using wildebeest meat. That way that way they can give the local villages access to good food at a very good price or even less. So, any rate, of course, uh, that sets up the foundation owner against the uh, against the cattle baron. Of course, that's what the conflict of the story is. And so the first book plays out with uh, with Kit training the Maasai cowboys how to rope and wrestle and corral wildebeest. They're for meat. At any rate, the story progresses of how the cattle baron tries to stop him and all that. There's a conflict, and characters are in there. There's a love interest in there and everything too, of course. At any rate, that's the first book. The second book, I don't know, I don't know if people are interested or aware of John Ford, the great Western cowboy director. And I create this character called Jack Cord, and Jack Cord, it had he had two flops in a row of westerns. He used to be basically I've taken John Ford's biography, and he's looking for something new. He's looking for new frontiers, right? And he said, if I flop again, I'm not going to get any support, financial support from studios. And so he's trying to figure out what to do, and he just remembered that he read an article in Cowboy Magazine or something that talks about Kit Carson in Africa. And he says, give me that article. So he get that article. Says, wow, this is it. This is it. So we're gonna we're gonna film my next movie, my next Western in Africa, doing everything with that we did here in America, but we're doing it with the Africans, with the Maasai cowboys and Kit Carson. Get me Kit Carson on the line, and I'm gonna, I'm not on the line, be in Africa, and we're gonna go down there. And his assistant there saying, "Well, what are you going to do? I mean, we don't even have a screenplay." He says, "I'm going to write it there." So he packs up the whole production crew, takes off to Africa, and of course, he's filming everything that's going on in Africa, but of course he needs a protagonist. Who's the protagonist? And he finds that once he gets there, uh, the local slave trader, the guy in charge of doing slave, again, this is turn of the century, so the slave things are still going on. He said he's told that to stop filming. We don't want you in there. That he said, no, I'm going to put you in as the protagonist. Well, that's the worst thing you could say because this guy doesn't want any publicity. So that's uh, the conflict. And in the second book, where he's trying to film, and he's being attacked by this slave trader trying to stop production and all that. So it's really a fascinating thing. So then when I was done with Kit Carson in Africa, I was looking for another type of movie, another type of Western. And I remember, I don't know if people have seen this, two movies. It's called The Revenant, okay, and the Gray, okay. And those two stories, I said, well, that's pretty good. Why don't I combine those together? Okay. And it came up with The Hunting Party. And The Hunting Party is about a buffalo hunter. This is again turn of the century. Buffalo hunter. Buffaloes are gone. And what is he going to do? So he opens up a saloon on the edge of the Yellowstone Park. Right? Well, it wasn't a park then, on the Yellowstone. And his buddy Boz, who's an old mule skinner and grizzly hunter. And he's saying, "What are you doing, Barrett? What are you doing, Corbett? You got used to be, a lot of adventure and stuff, but now you're sitting there and you're a saloon keeper." And he said, "You should go out again and start doing this." I said, "Do what?" And he says, "Well, do a hunting party, get people to want to hunt, lead them through the wilderness." And he said, "That's a great idea, but I need money." He's put together a hunting party. And then just as he says that, in walks these three Europeans who were headed by a baron from Europe, and they want to go to the hunting party. So I said, okay, so that's great. So you got these three guy characters. You got Hargrave, the baron, and then you've got the bishop, who he said the Hargrave says is the benefactor paying for this, and then you have Quinn, which is a seasoned hunter, but he's dying. Right? He's in bad shape. But anyway, and he wants to make one final hunt that'll seal his fate. And what they want to hunt is Caesar, who's the mythical elk of Yellowstone. And everybody hears about him, but nobody was able to catch him or kill him. The only person that got close enough is Corbett, who had an encounter with him, and Caesar left a piece of his horns in his leg. They had later on, which he had to remove, and so obviously he has a score to settle with Caesar. And when the money walks in, said, "Hey, this was great. I could do both things, get back to the hunting party, and also we take revenge on Caesar." So you got these three guys that walk in with Hargrave, and they want to go on the hunting party and go after Caesar. And while they're sitting there, two other guys come in with dubious methods or dubious reasons. They want to go after Caesar also. They want to join the hunting party, but uh, they seem to have other reasons to go in the hunting party, which becomes evident later on. And then lastly, you have Sam Holt come in, and he wants to join the hunting party too. But it turns out that he's a Secret Service agent hunting the two outlaws who killed his partner. So you have a lot of interesting interactions here, and they're all going to go out into Yellowstone. They got all
And why are they excited about hunting Caesar? What's the excitement
the
about it?
legend. The legend. He's a legend. He's never been caught, never been shot. When you see him, his body has all got rips on it, and they got bullet holes that he survived. He's almost mystic, almost mythical. Uh, so they all take off. They're well, they're well supplied on their horses with their mules, and immediately I got to figure out I got to get these guys on foot. If Yellowstone is be a threat, and what itself, it's bad enough that as the story progresses, they're hunted by Indians because they're in their holy hunting ground, which supposedly is where the gold is that the two outlaws are after. Okay, and then one of the outlaws decides that he's going to shoot a grizzly cub, right? And so then the grizzly mother sees it and he decides to stalk the hunting party. So you have the Indians stalking, hunting them. You got guys hunting for gold. You got the grizzly hunting for them. That's why it's called the hunting party. So
And what time period is it?
this is turn of the century, and late 1800s.
Okay. And I
So
think and that definitely hunting for gold. So, but they weren't. They're hunting for Caesar.
well, yeah, well, that's the overall concept. So, I mean, the European guys are hunting for Caesar. The two outlaws are hunting for the gold, and Sam Holt is hunting for the outlaws. So that's why everybody's got the concept of the hunting party, and everything goes from bad to worse. They begin getting knocked off by either the Indians or by the bears or by the Yellowstone itself. In fact, that right away I get them on foot, so they have very little to survive on, and also they're stuck in the Yellowstone, and they get flooded away by the Yellowstone River. And a flash flood takes out their horses, takes out their mules, takes out their supplies. And now they're being hunted. Also, the wolves are after them too because the wolves know what's going on. And it is pretty. At the end, I'm not going to tell you about the end, but the end they have the final in the cabin. They got to fight the grizzly, mother grizzly, who breaks in and goes after him, and the cabin gets shattered.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Well, so some really interesting stuff. Those are the two books out, right? Are both Kit Carson's new too? You both
Kit
books.
Carson, yeah, Kit Carson is new. There's one where he's taken to Africa, goes to Africa, trains the Maasai cowboys, and they do their corralling and what have you, catching. And the second one is basically using the character of John Ford as a producer director, and he goes to Africa and he does a western in Africa. And the
All
third one,
right.
is Hunting Party.
And they're all available at frankfiore.com. Appreciate it, Frank. That's some really interesting stuff. Getting excited as we're going to have another segment today that we're going to be talking about AI filmmaking. So I look forward to talking to you about that. You're listening and watching the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Frank Fiore Show, guys. Take care.